Welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat. We've got Michael of Jobeka Technology Group. Welcome to the Hot Seat, Michael.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Normally we get to see each other probably, I don't know, 6 times a year, probably at least on the road, but we'll settle for this. So good to have you on here. So we'll jump right into things. So first job you had, Michael, and lessons that you still that may still apply today for you.
So I was thinking about this. The first job I had was when I was 6 years old, living in Greenwich Village. There was a pharmacy, a local pharmacy. This is, by the way, this is in the 60s. I just want to put this out there. It was still the 60s. There was a pharmacy on the corner, and they hired me. I don't know how this happened. I failed the drug test. It was terrible. No, just kidding. But they hired me to basically do stuff like they would give me an open box of Crest toothpaste, hand me a grease pencil, and with my newfound skills with writing numbers, I would write 79 cents on each of and then put them on the shelf or something like that. And they paid me a penny a minute.
Wow.
And so I would work for like 45 minutes because that was, they had union rules and all that stuff there to deal with. So I was thinking about this going, well, that was really the first job I had. And I think that one of the things it taught me is like valuing my time. I mean, it was just a penny a minute, but when I collected that, I felt like I had earned something. And it really meant something to me. And I have often pushed. I mean, I've spent a lot of time undervaluing myself. I don't have all this stuff figured out. I don't want to ever come off that way. But I've really worked hard to try to value myself appropriately and not be afraid to do that. And part of being in the channel and working with really good companies, colleagues, peers, mentors, all folks that you and I both know is it reinforces that lesson. And I can really trace that back to that kid with the grease pencil.
Wow, that's really cool. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, that was the youngest example of a first job. But just out of curiosity, first job as a teenager, what was do you remember?
Yeah, so I mean, I had a number of jobs. My dad owned a business, so I spent a number of summers working for him. He had like the premier picture framing factory in the country, working out of Soho, New York, and then I spent some time working in Cape Cod in the food industry. And I'll just, as a quick lesson, I was working as a dishwasher for a good restaurant up in Cape Cod, and I wasn't making enough money. I mean, I was making what they were paying me. It was probably minimum wage, 3 something an hour. This is like 1979. And I was living up there alone. I had a little place that they gave me, and I had a goal. And my goal was that I wanted to buy what I thought was a really good stereo system. Mm-hmm. And I could see that I wasn't making enough money to do that. And my friend Bob, that I worked there with the year before, he had gotten a job at Howard Johnson's in Provincetown. And he was like, hey, man, we need a prep cook here, And I was like, okay. I was working 5 nights a week, maybe 6. Plus I was mowing the lawns with a push mower.
Got it.
It's 48 cabin property. And Bob said, hey, we have this prep shift open 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. I mean, I was 16 and I certainly wasn't lazy, but I wasn't. But I went and I got that job because that extra 40 hours a week. I mean, I was working 80 hours a week. I made enough in that last month to buy that stereo.
That's awesome.
So that's another important lesson, I suppose.
Yeah, no, very cool. So you recently, I think maybe in the last year or two, participated in a movie called Cybercrime, and I believe it premiered on Amazon Prime. Talk to us a little bit about that experience.
That was a great experience. It was a real honor to be able to participate in that film. It was an effort to bring important information about cybercrime and how it can affect both individuals and businesses and how pernicious it is to the public. And
Yep.
I mean, we're in this space, so we get it, and we see what's happening out there. It's amazing how many people don't see. And, it's a tagline in the film. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And we've all been saying that for a while anyway. And it's just getting more and more real. So I was asked to be in the follow-up, Cybercrime 2, or the Son of Cybercrime, or whatever. No, but and it's a film that's focusing a lot on the dark web, because it's really interesting when we can sit down with a client and we're doing a QBR at Jobeca. We call them strategic business reviews.
Got it.
So SBRs, but it's the same concept, but I try to focus as much as possible on strategy. So we were doing one the other day, and of course your report is a critical component, because I want to point out, like, you might have all these risk factors there, and they don't point to us, and they don't point to them necessarily what they're doing. I mean, if they're using this password everywhere, that does point to them. But if you had a Marriott account and Marriott got hacked, and now you have this personally identifiable information, they say, well, what does that mean? What do I do with this information? And it's great that Jobeca is getting a ticket and we're working with them. Sometimes it's just a phone call to say, change your password. Other times it's just, we're trying to reinforce that educational piece that says, look, every piece of data that was culled from here, and we don't know what that is. There's PII hits. You've got to be really mindful of these phishing emails, because it's just, all you need is one or two pieces of information in there to make something that you would catch easily. And now you're caught. And by the way, I mean, that goes true for even folks like us. We can get caught up in this stuff, and then on top of that, I mean, we still have end users, and we'll always have end users, that I jokingly think that, I mean, these are folks that really, we should just be handing them chisels, and stones to communicate, because a computer in their hand is a weapon.
Absolutely. I mean, just one quick anecdote. I mean, since COVID hit, I mean, there's been a 600% rise in phishing emails. I mean, and they take such advantage of it. They do it related to COVID, because that's what's on people's minds. And they're very nimble, unfortunately, and makes it harder for people to detect them. So you're kind of everywhere. You're doing these cybercrime movies. You're an author. You've been hitting the local news circuits. What are some of the things you've learned in the process of doing these interviews? Because you've done a number of them now, and I'm sure they're getting easier, I would assume. But
well, I don't like talking very much, as you know, so that's a bit of a problem. Well, seriously, I think the most important thing in doing any kind of a good interview is trying to be a natural and engaging communicator. So if you have a good message and you have something to share, and I think I do, and I know you do, if you can't present it well, no one's going to care. And, look, I'm in business because I want to grow a big, successful business, and I want it to be profitable, and I want to take care of the people who have invested their trust in me, in working for me. And as clients, we want to be able to service as many as we can, because we believe we can make a difference and help small businesses and nonprofits thrive, even in a time of COVID. So if I go and do an interview and I don't work hard to be not just genuine, but also entertaining a little bit, if I don't learn the techniques that help communicate and get a message, I'm doing a disservice to myself and to people who might want to engage with me. I think it's important to think of that. I mean, I'm just looking at a camera right now. What is there, I don't know how many folks watch your show at various times, and you have all the metrics on that. But if I can reach, one person, and obviously your target market is trying to work with other MSPs. Right. So I have stuff to share there. And of course, I'm in communities, as you well know, where sharing that information is really important. If one person reaches out to me because I've been somewhat engaging, then I feel like I've contributed somehow. And I think keeping that front of mind allows you to do that stuff, even if some of the quote unquote techniques, the entertaining techniques, aren't necessarily natural.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and with this, feature, this MSP Hot Seat, I've purposely designed it around the content so that it's applicable. Yeah, an MSP listening will get something out of it, but also your end user. It's really designed to be pretty broad. Speaking of the end user, so one of the things you offer on your website is a guide that you put together. It's 16 questions you should ask before selecting a computer software company. Why is it so important for an SMB to review those questions before deciding on an IT provider?
Well, have you ever bought anything?
Yeah, I just bought the Apple. I just bought the new iPhone.
Okay. Have you ever bought anything where a proposal was included?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know what you do, but even though I'm in the business of selling services, what is it that most people do right away when they get that proposal in their hand?
Read it or just put it to the side, I guess.
No, they don't read it. They flip to the last page and they
just look at the price.
They look at the number. And without that information in that report, and you're just looking at things being a commodity. What we sell is incredibly complex and really scary and intimidating to most people. Even really, really bright business people, they just want to know how to sell their widgets, represent their clients, service their sector, whatever it is. They just want to do that. And our stuff, I mean, yes, we get prospective clients and clients who are, I should have turned that off, that I'm not available. I apologize.
All good.
They just want to know what it is that we're going to be able to do for them. And if all they do is look at the number, they're not going to have any context, and they're going to be comparing us the way they might compare a plumber or somebody who's going to put siding on the house. Not that there aren't, areas there where we need to delineate. So I think it's good to put a report like that out there to say, look, there's a number of factors, number of things you've got to think about. And if you're just looking at a number first and you're not asking first, what's their process? How do they go through doing projects? How do they continually improve? What are the gotchas that you have to be careful of? Then you're not going to be an educated consumer.
Yeah, and that's what I think I love about it, is because even when they're going into the meeting with you, if they've reviewed those, now you're having a much more higher level conversation with them, because they're asking you presumably some of the questions that are asked in that document. So that's really cool. So last question on the hot seat, pretty easy one. Well, I don't know, maybe it's not easy, but I know you like to travel. So post-COVID, whatever that even means, where is one place in the world that you're absolutely visiting? Because I think everybody feels now, I got to go to these places now, because you just never know what's going to happen in the world. So where would that be for you?
One of the great things about working with nonprofits is, they have their galas.
Yep.
And 2 years ago, we purchased we had the winning bid for a villa in Italy, 5-bedroom, 15th century, 5 with a cook and the whole thing. And we went over with some family and some really close friends, and we had this amazing experience. And I won that one again from a different nonprofit. Long story we're getting into here. But I also won a casa in Spain for a week. Now, Spain was supposed to be a couple of months ago in August. Well, that fell through, and he was able to push me, and we picked a week next. So we have Spain next summer, but we also have Italy next summer, and they are 2 weeks apart in the middle. There's 1 week, 2 weeks off, then the other week. So look, I don't know what the restrictions are going to be, Matt, but if there aren't restrictions, I'm taking that month. That doesn't mean I won't work. And, we have our full ubiquitous platform. We can work in the cloud, and I'll commit to a certain number of hours per day for a certain amount of that trip. But we're going to go and do Europe, another something that's percolating on my reticular system is that I've always wanted to go to the Galapagos. So
that is high on my list as well. My wife and I were debating between Galapagos or an African safari. So those have been the two we've had on our bucket list. So maybe.
And where did you go? Wait, you went someplace really cool on your honeymoon, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to Tahiti.
Right, I remember.
To like Tahiti, Bora Bora. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be cool too.
Well, no, and I feel so fortunate that we got married and we were able to go to Bora Bora right fairly not too far off before this stuff happened. So
that's awesome.
Very lucky. Well, Michael, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining the hot seat today.
Great seeing you, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael.